Live in a while. This is my first time going live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook. So let me know if you are here. My first time in several months. I am going to get back to doing this weekly and would love to see some people in the comments. I'm going to be throwing out some questions to you. Would love your feedback and suggestions on anything you want to discuss all about making work awesome. If you do not know me yet, my name's Pam Ross. I'm the founder of Blue Rebel Works, and our mission is to improve people's lives by making work awesome. And I know that the past 18 months has been a challenge for many, and so today's LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, wherever you are, is all about the Great Resignation and some of the challenges it's posing. So let's just start with thinking about context. Here we are, October 2021, more than a year and a half into a global pandemic. We've seen communities divided, tons of political divide. We've had long overdue reckoning with racial injustice. So much more that has had an impact on our lives. And in the workplace, some workplaces have been essential services and have been working, on location throughout the pandemic. And in the beginning, those workers were being praised as heroes, and people were banging pots and pans to thank them and, sending appreciation notes and serenading them in the evenings. We saw videos of that at the beginning of the pandemic. And I know for some of our clients who work in those industries, a lot of those workers are feeling really unappreciated now. And they're dealing with extra concerns, sometimes having to deal with some of those division issues like masks or vaccine mandates and all of those different things. All of our frontline workers are now having to deal with, in addition to having been on the front line and working so hard for all of us throughout the pandemic. So in some workplaces, it is that kind of pressure that is on people. In other workplaces, we're working in a hybrid model or remotely, and that's causing feelings of disconnection, difficulty collaborating. Leaders are feeling like they're struggling to be able to tell how people are really doing. And all of this is happening while those blurry boundaries that we've had for many years between work and life have only grown larger. So I would love to hear from you. If you're here in the comments, please say hi. And I do have a question for you. Let's see. Let's start with my first question for you. Oh, no, that's not my question. Let me start with a different question for you. I would love to know from you, what are you finding most challenging about work right now? We're going to be talking about the Great Resignation, and a lot of people are leaving their jobs. I'm going to get into some of the statistics and a few potential solutions. We are hosting a 90-minute collaborative workshop next Thursday, which I'll pop a link in the chat in the comments in a few minutes, so that you can join us. But today I want to give like a little bit of a sort of state of what is this Great Resignation and some tips. And if you're here, I want to hear from you. So if you are here, please let me know, what are you finding most challenging about work right now? And I'll share some of the things that we're hearing. Number one thing that keeps on coming up, especially for those remote teams, has been keeping people connected, keeping my team connected, collaborating, really keeping those relationships going after being remote for so long. I'm also hearing challenges in supporting people emotionally. I'm hearing from a tactical standpoint, how do we onboard new people when we don't get to meet them physically a lot of times? I know I'm going through that right now. I have a new person on our team who we haven't met. We actually have met 15 years ago or so, but we haven't seen each other in person since she started, and for many, many years. So tactically, how do we onboard people in this world and make sure that they have that opportunity? I'm seeing Sherry. Yes. Yes to what? Tell me what's resonating for you. What's most challenging about work right now? I'm hearing communicating effectively using technology. Back in 2013, I co-authored something called the Blueprint for Workplace Reinvention. And one of the competencies we talked about then was digital fluency and the ability to use different technologies so that you could collaborate, communicate, connect really effectively using technology. And I think that is such a core skill right now. That digital fluency skill. We actually have a hybrid leadership course where we dive into some of that. If you want information about that, let me know in the comments. So continuing on, what are people finding most challenging about work now? So if you are here live or watching a replay, let me know in the comments. Having feedback conversations, that sometimes feels more difficult when we can't be in the same room or live together. Work-life balance. Work-life balance is really hard. And I'm seeing, thank you, Sherry, collaboration and inclusion on teams. Oh my goodness, yes. I was just reading a study by the Center for the Purpose of the Corporation, a Canadian Center for the Purpose of the Corporation, and inclusion is one of the reasons why people are leaving if they don't feel like their organization is supporting diversity and inclusion. Collaboration and inclusion on teams, huge. Thank you, Sherry. I'm seeing Sri here. Hi, Sri Vitson. Let me see. How can I add you? There we go. Is that coming up? A nightmare finding new tech resources here and abroad. Do you know companies in India are offering free vacation travel packages and bikes to new joinees? Yes. So we're talking about the Great Resignation. How can you attract people? I am hearing things like that, Sri. I love, that's a really specific one and such a unique benefit, right? When you think of some of the people that might be working in these organizations, how burnt out they might be and how great a free vacation travel package might seem, that's a huge benefit, right? So yes, I'm hearing signing bonuses. I'm hearing unique benefits like that. One of our clients has made it an option that you can move somewhere for 4 months, anywhere in the world, go to Europe or somewhere abroad for 4 months and work there. Due to visas and things, they've kind of capped that at 4 months for now, but who knows what the future might be for, as a benefit to your employees. So not only for attracting people, I'm seeing a lot of attraction bonuses like that. I also think we need to think about retaining people by offering some things to those people who have been loyal in our organization, some benefits that make sense now. So what are you finding most challenging about work right now? The other one is retaining talent. I've had some conversations with leaders lately who have had some people leave their teams, and in their opinion, they're convinced that if they had been in one room together, they would have seen that these people were struggling maybe and could have stopped them from leaving. And I think it's a little bit more complex than that. There is a lot going on that's causing some people to leave. So they are talking about this, economists are talking about this as the Great Resignation. And there is certainly a role that many things are playing in this. There's lots of things happening. I'm going to share a few of the statistics, and then I'm going to share a bit of the sort of research and suggestions around a few areas where you can get started. I'll just mention that we are hosting a 90-minute collaborative workshop next Thursday. We're charging $20 for it, but that all goes to Fora Network for a Change, which is all about developing young girls. So I will leave you that link in the chat when I'm in the comments when we're finished here. But for today, I want to give you a few tips to get started. So first of all, let's look at some of the statistics. Let's see. In 2021, they are saying that the level of people leaving their jobs is 10 to 15% higher than the numbers that were leaving their jobs in 2019. And 2019 was seen as a record year for resignations. It was higher than any years before. So in 2021, we have broken that record. There are a lot of people leaving. So they're calling it the Great Resignation. This kind of thing does happen cyclically. There's kind of like more power to the employee at times, and then there's seasons of more power in the employer at times. And we are definitely seeing more power in the employee right now. Achievers did a study in the US and Canada and found that 52% of employees intend to look for a new job. That was done earlier this year. The Canadian Centre for the Purpose of the Corporation found that 42% of workers are considering changing their career or job within the next year. And this isn't just frontline employees. Managers are also quitting, retiring, changing jobs, opting for a lesser role, something with less stress, in droves as well. 51%, half of managers considering leaving this year. So there is a lot going on, and there's a few factors. So first of all, so I'm going to talk specifically about 3 factors today. If you're joining us next week in our collaboratory, we'll collaborate and come up with other ones, but I'm going to focus on 3. 1 is burnout, 2 is connection, that ability to connect, and 3 is purpose. So first of all, burnout. I'm just going to share a quick screen here. This is from Edelman. Edelman does a trust barometer every year, and they often dive deeper into some of the issues. And they have this year in spring dove deeper into a lot of issues around burnout as well. So you can see here 62% of employees say they've increased their value to their employer by taking on more work and responsibility. And 43% are saying that their employer is not addressing burnout. So lots and lots of burnout happening. So I am curious to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10. Oh, hey, Bill, I see you in the comments. I want to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I am flourishing and thriving, 10 being I am in total burnout. Where are you? If you're here live in the comments, pop that into the comments. If you're watching the replay, let me know in the replay. I know for me personally, I have certainly gone along that scale towards burnout. And there's lots of stages on that burnout scale. One of them being revision of values. As we start to feel burnt out and our stress levels increase, you know, they have identified 12 stages of burnout before you get to full burnout. But one of the stages along the way is revision of values. And that is such a huge factor in people leaving their roles right now, which I will talk about when I get to purpose. And I'm seeing some comments. Amanda, 8. Gina, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. 6. Sri, 6. Claire, hi Claire, great to see you. One of my speaker colleagues. I hear from many clients about burnout. Yes. Carita, 6. Sherry, 6. So 6 is not great, right? 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10. These numbers are not great, and we are not alone. Burnout is definitely a huge factor right now. So I want to share a few, there's a few other stats I'll share about burnout. Oh, I see Scott saying your wife actually had to resign due to overwork, overstress, no help on the horizon. Oh, like my heart hurts. My mission to make work awesome, that my heart is so fully in that, and that hurts my heart to know that happened, Scott. And I'm seeing Sri, I think working in silos is also adding to that feeling of burnout. We only talk to others via online personas, which is so much different from talking in person. Yeah, I agree. And I also challenge that we can't build deep, meaningful relationships through online connections. And this is something I've been really passionate about for many years. I'll have to do a LinkedIn Live just about connecting via online. I've been really, really active in that space for a long time. And my team works fully remotely and have really, really tight relationships. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that when I get to the connection stage. So I'm going to cover burnout, connection, and purpose today. Again, want to invite you to join us next week for a 90-minute workshop where we'll collaborate on more than this. I will add the link in the comments at the end. Thank you for these, for your insight here. It's so powerful. So a few of the other things I'll just share. Let's see here. I just wanted to share a stat about managers reporting finishing work feeling mentally or physically exhausted. 82%. This is from Achievers study earlier this year. The other thing contributing to this, and this is so important, this is that remote kind of is throwing extra wrench into this burnout thing. So 51% of employees who are working from home are worried that their manager or supervisor is doubting their productivity. And 44% are reporting working longer because of that worry. So it may not be anything that a manager is intentionally doing to be kind of monitoring or talking about hours, but this is affecting people, right? And in the meantime, so 51% of employers are saying that they worry that their manager or supervisor doubts their productivity. Meanwhile, in the stat I shared from Edelman, 62% say that they have increased their value to their employer by taking on more work and responsibility. So 44% are working longer because they're worried about that. This is a really toxic kind of feeling to be in. So I do want to talk about that. Burnout wise, also 59% of managers say they're unable to pause or relax, and 49% are having difficulty sleeping. So, I mean, give me a heck yeah in the comments if you've been there. Having trouble pausing, relaxing, sleeping throughout everything that we've been going through. Okay, so burnout is real. It's happening a lot. A few suggestions that I wanted to share, and I would love to hear your suggestions in the chat. And I'm seeing from Scott. It's so great to see you, Scott, my old colleague. Not old in age, just a long time since we worked together. Thanks, man, for your thoughts. This appears to be rampant as employers are trying to do more with less. Yes. I'm seeing my friend Matt here. Heck yeah. Yeah, heck yeah. Difficulty sleeping, difficulty pausing, difficulty relaxing. I am so with you. Yes. It has been a challenge. So let's talk about some solutions for burnout. I would love to hear if you have done something personally, or if you've seen someone do something personally to help curb that burnout, and I will give you a few suggestions here. Again, inviting you to join our collaboratory next week where we'll talk more about this. But I hope this goes without saying. Please do not be monitoring anyone's time. I shared that stat about people worrying that their managers are doubting their time or their work productivity. One of the worst things that you can possibly do is monitor people's time. We know that when people are working from home, it's difficult to separate work and life. We know that the statistics all show that people are working longer. They're starting earlier, finishing later. So please don't monitor time. And I would also even say, please do not be trading time. So if someone says, I have an appointment in the afternoon, I'll make up the hours later. Let's remove time from the equation. And this is why I am such a huge fan of results only work environment. If you've not heard of that, check out, I think it's gorowe.com, GOROWE.com. They have a model that removes all discussions about time or attendance regarding work, and you focus on the outcomes of the work. So I highly recommend, do not get into hour trading. If someone says they have to be out of their office or they have to be offline for a few hours, do not ask them when they're going to make up that time. Just focus on getting the work done. So you can say something like that, like, absolutely take care of whatever you need to do. Let's just make sure we meet our deadlines. Right? Instead of, okay, absolutely make sure whatever you do, just make up the time later. Forget about the time, worry about the outcomes. So that's my first thing that will help with burnout. Give people more control over their schedules, because we all have different kinds of schedules in this work from home kind of environment. As managers, model flexibility, log off. Don't have your green, like whether you're on Teams or Slack or whatever, don't show that you're online all the time, because that can set the feeling that others have to be. Go for a walk in the afternoon and let your employees know about it. Right? Do something that shows that you are also taking advantage of the flexibility that you could have, and encourage and model that for others. If you are working at different hours, because that's bound to happen, you can add to your emails something like, I may be emailing you in the evening, but I do not expect a response, right? So you can set some expectations. And I actually suggest doing this as an intentional discussion with your team. We have a whole online course called Awesome Leadership in a Hybrid World. It's going to be opening up in a couple of weeks. But one of the tools we give is a format for setting some standards around all the technology you use and sort of response times, and having one urgent channel. So as an example, on my team, I may be working at different hours because I often, I'm taking walks in the afternoon. I might just have lots to do, so I'm working on a weekend or whatever. So we do not talk about time. We do operate as a results-only work environment, or ROW. So we don't talk about time, but we have set standards around response times. So if we email you, we expect that there'll be a response within 24 business hours. Or 24 hours of business days. But text is the only thing that's urgent. So I'm never going to put something in our project management software or via an email and expect a response in a few hours. I'll only do that by text. That way people don't feel like they have to be checking their email all the time because you're emailing them at different hours. So these are some suggestions around helping to curb that burnout. It is modeling the flexibility, giving people more control over their time, not talking about time or trading hours, focusing on the outcomes, and making really clear agreements around response time so people don't feel like they have to be on all the time. I'd love to hear any suggestions that you have. If you are here live or watching the replay, let me know in the comments, what other suggestions do you have or have you done to help yourself or your team with burnout? Next kind of challenge is that connection piece. So I'm going to give, again, a few tips around connection. I would love to hear what you're doing to connect your team, to connect with the people that you work with while you're working virtually. So, and I just am seeing a question here. Is much of this transparency about burnout a fear about being perceived as vulnerable or weak, particularly for males? Ooh, such a good question, Matt. And, I think there's a lot of things. So I hope that some of that kind of perception or feeling of not wanting to show vulnerability is starting to go by the wayside. I know for a lot of our clients, even things like connecting and sharing what's challenging for you over the pandemic, a lot of leaders would not have thought about doing that prior to the pandemic, but through the pandemic, they realized the impact that had and how it could open up connection with their team by sharing challenges and being more open and just having more personal connection. So I'm hoping we're starting to see a little shift in that. I think it's a really good question, though. I do think that there is, especially depending on your culture, right? Depending on the culture of your organization, certainly a fear about showing that you are struggling or saying that you're feeling burnt out. I definitely think that can be a huge challenge. I don't know that it's only for males. I think there's also for women often the feeling that we're going to be judged even more harshly sometimes. So I don't know if it would be just for males. I do think that depending on your culture, that can definitely be a fear, being perceived like you can't handle all the work or that sort of thing. So thank you for that awesome question. Amanda, I'm seeing some great suggestions here around connection. Let's see. Daily preset video coffee meetings for all who wish to join. Yes, optional, right? All who wish to join. This is not a mandatory thing. Some people, want to just get some work done, need a day to just have some independent working time. And I love that it's not about work. It's about connecting, online team, collaborative games, escape rooms, that sort of thing. Yeah, some of those fun events are a great idea. I've heard a lot about these social half-hour calls, setting up that time that people can just meet socially, not about work, having that time just to connect. I think that's a really great idea. A lot of the online team collaborative things were happening, especially early in the pandemic. I think people got a little burnt out by having extra online time, but I think doing those occasionally to bring people together, especially when there's like a fun thing to do, I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much, Amanda. I would suggest also, and this is something that I put in practice in my team, actually, because oftentimes we put things in practice because we've made a mistake in the past. So I will share with you that I had someone quit from my team. I mentioned we have been working virtually remotely for more than 10 years. I had someone leave my team, and after she left, when I was asking her, what were some of the things that we could improve on, one of the things that she mentioned was that she didn't feel like I really cared about her, which was devastating to me. And it was because in our one-to-one meetings, I have a tendency to be very driven and very focused on getting stuff done. So I would get right into the work. And at that point, when I got that feedback many years ago, I started adding a personal check-in at the beginning of every meeting. And that has been a practice that has been so effective, especially through the pandemic. We have an agenda for our one-to-one meeting, but in some of our one-to-ones especially the course of the pandemic, we would do our check-in and find out that someone was really having a challenge and struggling personally. And I kind of scrapped the whole agenda and we focused on that and just kind of really open discussions, coaching through challenges, and having that personal check-in at the beginning of every meeting. Sometimes it's just a really quick, share one word to say how you're feeling or share one thing you're grateful for. Having that personal check-in at the beginning of every meeting is a really great way to keep connected without having extra meetings. So that is one thing. Another thing that we have just recently started doing and we're really enjoying is when I don't have meetings in my calendar, I've scheduled some open Zoom rooms, and it's optional. You can come in if you want. We don't even have to talk. You can just come in, check in, and say what you're working on and get to work. Or you can come in and ask a question. I recently brought a new person onto my team, and that virtual onboarding is difficult. So having these open Zoom rooms where she can pop in when she's working on something, it's kind of like turning around to your manager or a teammate in the office and asking a question. So I found that super helpful. I just open up the Zoom room. It's in our calendars. It's an optional invitation. You can pop in and out or stay for the whole time. Totally up to you, but it is like that open office. I'm finding that super helpful. A small thing that I am really surprised that I'm hearing a lot of companies still haven't done this. If you're having town halls or all hands meetings, have some breakouts, do breakout rooms, give them a question to discuss, put people in random breakouts so they're able to connect personally. Really, really, really suggest that if you have not done that. You're really missing out on that opportunity when you have everyone in your organization together to give them those interpersonal connections. Another idea is having work sprints. As an entrepreneur, this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs do quite often. There are some apps that are set up specifically for this, where you join a Zoom call and everyone checks in at the beginning and says what you're working on, and then we just silently work away with the audio. So leave your microphone on, leave your camera on, so you feel like you're in the company of others. And at the end of the call, you check in and say whether you got it done and how it went. And that can be a really effective way of just making a feeling of togetherness. So scheduling some work sprints as another option. So those are my suggestions for connection. Amanda shared some great suggestions, and I would love to see any other suggestions that you have for building that connection. And the final section or area that I wanted to talk about today is purpose. So a lot of people are leaving because of a disconnect of values, not feeling that sense of purpose with their work. And, this is an interesting one. I personally quit my job 10 years ago, because of a personal health crisis that I had 11 years ago. It was kind of the catalyst for me leaving my job. Because a lot of us, when we go through something that is like personally really difficult, we start to reevaluate our lives and the role work plays and that sort of thing. And so for me, that happened 11 years ago when I had a personal health crisis, and I quit my job about a year later and started Blue Rebel Works with our mission to improve lives by making work awesome. Now, although that kind of thing does happen to individuals, I think the pandemic has been this kind of 18-month crisis that was like a whole community crisis, right? We all went through this collective crisis together. And so that's caused so many of us to reevaluate, and I think is having a huge impact on this Great Resignation. So how can you create more meaning and purpose for your employees? And I'll just share one or two stats here. So this is from that Edelman barometer I shared earlier. So the percent of people who are changing jobs who say what the reason is. And 59% said a better fit with my values, 50% said better fit for my lifestyle, and only 30% said it was about compensation or career advancement. So that purpose piece, that values piece, feeling connected in those ways is so important. So if you are an organizational leader and you have kind of some power or purview over your organizational mission, if you haven't done so, I think it's really important to think about not only like a mission of like becoming the biggest restaurant company in North America or whatever it is, but also a mission around what's the impact that you have on your people, on the communities that you serve, on your guests or customers. So really thinking about what is that impact, and taking a rewrite of your mission statement to be more purposeful and deep. Now, you may not work at an organization that has a deep purpose, but you can still find some purpose. So team leaders, you can work with your team to come up with some, what's the impact the work your team does, whether that impacts colleagues, whether that impacts customers, whether that impacts the community. You can take a look at, when have you been most proud of the work you've done as a team? What's the impact your work is having? And look at your team purpose statement. And if that hasn't happened for you, you're an individual contributor, you want to feel some purpose, you can think about just the impact you have on your colleagues. What's one little thing that you can do today to brighten someone's day? What's one little thing that you can do for a customer to cause a deeper feeling of connection? And really think about those things intentionally, because chances are some of those are why you started your job in the first place, and we forget about it over time. We forget about what drew us to that industry or to what we're doing over time. So do spend some time thinking about, why did I start working here? What is the impact I can have? And what's meaningful for me? Take a look at, if you have a value of learning, take a look at what you're learning as you're working. Give yourself some feedback regularly. Reflect on what you're doing well, what you want to improve on, and what you're learning, so that you can feel like you're getting some learning. If you have a value or want to have more purpose in making a difference to others, you can do things within your own community, within your team at work, and just take kind of a leadership role there. And I personally went through a feeling of not having purpose at work many years ago. And I have done a few things over my time working in the corporate world. So, one time I organized a team to go into the Relay for Life to raise money for cancer. It's like an overnight relay. This was one of the greatest experiences I had with my work colleagues. It was so interesting because I just sent out an email to the head office that I worked at the time, and said, thinking about doing this, would anyone be interested in it? And there were people that I didn't know at all that worked in that office that joined the team. And we spent this overnight time together. We hitched a tent in this Relay for Life area. One of us had to be on the track at all times overnight. We got to know each other. We built these connections. So I suddenly had a really great relationship with the VP of logistics in that company, who I never would have really known well other than that. Or, so you'll be surprised at some of these things that you can do just with a little bit of initiative. Another time I reached out to community centers and found one that was doing holiday hampers for families in need. And I got people together to organize some gifts and necessities for those families. So there are things that you can do if you're just feeling like you want some more connection, really informally within your team or colleagues. So I suggest, look for those things. If you're a leader, you might not have an organizational purpose that you feel aligned to, but you might be able to come up with a purpose of making an impact on the team that reports to you, developing them, having really strong feedback conversations so they're always growing and learning, mentoring others, right? There's lots we can do within our role, even if our company isn't a not-for-profit, doesn't have this, ultimate purpose that we feel super engaged in. And having that sense of purpose and creating that for your team will help them feel more connected, and hopefully also help curb that Great Resignation. So I have shared some of the stats about Great Resignation, some of the key challenges, and taken a look at some solutions. I want to invite you to join me next Thursday for a 90-minute workshop where we'll dive deeper. You'll be able to collaborate with peers and different companies. and we'll take a look at what we can do to cope with and curb the Great Resignation. I really think this is a great opportunity to reinvent work, to really think about intentional connections, being stronger and more purposeful and purpose driven, and really creating more well-being and that flourishing sort of work-life balance for our teams. I think this is a great time to not just adjust what we're doing to this remote world or hybrid world, but really think about reimagining what the role is of work, how we're measuring work, and how we're leading our teams so that work is really a meaningful part of our lives. So thank you so much for everyone for joining me. I will be back to doing these once a week, and thank you. I see that must be Katie here. I don't know why your name's not coming up, Katie. In LinkedIn has just popped in a link to our collaboratory that's happening on Thursday. Please do join us. We are collecting a fee that will be donated to Fora Network for a Change for that collaboratory. So I'd love to see you there. And I will see you live very soon. We're going to do some more lives. If there are specific topics you'd love to discuss, or even if you want to come live with me, please connect with me and talk to me. We can go live together as well. So I'd love to see you both in the comments and here on video. You could join me one time for one of these weekly lives. So I'll be back next week. I will be posting, make sure we're connected so that you can see what the next topic will be. And if you have suggestions, please let me know. I will see you there. And until then, make work awesome.